The evening grows quiet, the noise of the day fading into stillness. The weight of burdens slowly loosening as the heart turns toward rest. Here begins the meditation of Psalm 27. A psalm of David. A psalm that opens with light, salvation, and confidence in the Lord. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? These words rise like the first star piercing the sky. Soft yet steady, a reminder that even in the deepest night, there is light. And not just any light, but the Lord Himself. For light dispels darkness. It reveals the path hidden by shadow. It calms the fears that creep in when sight is dim. And salvation delivers from danger. It rescues the trembling, lifts the fallen, shelters the weary. And strength holds firm when the world shakes, when enemies rise, when the heart falters. David's voice in this psalm is not the voice of a man untouched by fear. He knew danger. He knew pursuit. He knew betrayal. But in the face of fear, he declares confidence. Not in his own strength, not in the power of armies, not in the height of walls, but in the Lord, His light, His salvation, His stronghold. As night settles, imagine His words echoing through the chambers of the soul. The Lord is my light. The Lord is my salvation. The Lord is my stronghold. Each phrase like a steady rhythm of assurance. Each repetition like a soft hand upon the shoulder. Each word calming the trembling places within. The fears of the day, troubles faced, words spoken, worries carried, begin to fade in the presence of such truth. For what darkness can endure the light of the Lord? What danger can overcome His salvation? What storm can break through the walls of His stronghold? David's words invite us into the same confidence. To look at the shadows not with dread, but with trust. To feel the weight of uncertainty not as crushing, but as a reminder to lean upon the Lord. To breathe deeply and know. The one who created light itself, the one who saves with a mighty hand, the one who shelters with unshakable strength, is near. So the night becomes less frightening, the heart less restless, the soul more still. This psalm is not only David's song. It is the song of every soul who dares to trust the Lord in the face of fear. It is the prayer of the weary, the declaration of the hopeful, the comfort of the trembling. As the words settle upon the heart, they form a shield. Not of stone, not of steel, but of truth. A shield strong enough to quiet fears, gentle enough to soothe sorrow, enduring enough to carry through the longest night. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Repeat them softly. Let them linger like the final embers of a fire. Let them wrap the heart in peace, the mind in calm, the soul in assurance. For the Lord Himself is light, and His light does not fade. The words of the psalm linger in the heart. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? And now David turns his eyes to the reality of enemies, of threats that rise like shadows in the night. When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. These are not the words of a man who lived in ease. David knew the press of danger. He knew what it was to be hunted, to hear the sound of pursuing footsteps, to feel the weight of opposition. Yet in the face of armies and war, he speaks not of trembling but of confidence. It is not because he was stronger than his enemies, not because his army was greater, his walls higher, or his weapons sharper. It was because he knew the Lord. The Lord, who struck down Goliath with a single stone in the hand of a shepherd boy. The Lord, who delivered Israel from Egypt, who parted seas and drowned armies in their pursuit. The Lord, who surrounds his people as mountains surround Jerusalem. This is the one David trusted. And so he declares, "My heart will not fear. Even then I will be confident." These words fall like gentle rain upon the soul tonight. For though we may not face swords or spears, we too know the press of enemies. Not always men with weapons, but fears that prowl in the mind, doubts that whisper in the dark, anxieties that storm like armies around the heart. And the psalmist speaks into that storm with truth. The Lord is stronger than what surrounds you. His hand steadier than the waves that rise against you. His protection greater than the armies that march toward you. His presence nearer than the enemies that circle close. David does not deny the reality of trouble. He does not pretend that enemies vanish, or that war does not come. He faces it honestly. But in facing it, he declares the deeper truth. That the Lord is with him, and that is enough. So too can the soul rest in this assurance. That when fear presses in, the Lord is present. That when enemies rise, they stumble before his strength. That when anxiety swells like an army, his peace stands as a fortress. Breathe deeply in this truth tonight. Even if the world feels hostile, even if tomorrow feels uncertain, even if fears gather like shadows, the Lord is light. And light casts out darkness. The Lord is salvation. And salvation delivers from harm. The Lord is the stronghold of life. And strongholds cannot be shaken when they are built by his hand. David's words become a song of courage. Not the courage of pride, but of trust. Not the courage of self, but of surrender. Confidence not in strength, but in the presence of God himself. So let the enemies of the heart lose their power tonight. Let the shadows fall where the Lord's light shines. Let the restless fears scatter before the strength of his presence. For even if an army encamps around you, even if war rises against you, even if the night feels heavy with threats unseen, your heart can rest in confidence, because the Lord is near. The psalm flows gently onward. from the declaration of confidence in the face of enemies, to the deepest desire of the heart. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Here David lays bare the longing of his soul, not for victory over enemies, not for wealth, nor fame, nor long life, but for the presence of God. Of all the things he could ask, he chooses this one. He longs to dwell in the house of the Lord, to remain near, to live continually in the place of God's presence, to gaze upon his beauty. Not the beauty of gold or jewels, not the splendor of palaces or the strength of armies, but the beauty of holiness. The radiance of God's character, the loveliness of his mercy, the glory of his goodness. David knew what it was to taste the sweetness of God's nearness. In the wilderness, when he tended sheep, he felt the Lord as his shepherd. In the heat of battle, when victory seemed impossible, he knew the Lord as his strength. In the quiet of night, under the stars, he sang psalms of worship and felt the Lord as his friend. And now, as he writes these words, he declares the longing that all other desires shrink before: to dwell with God always. This longing is not only David's. It is written deep into the heart of every soul. The ache for something beyond this world. The desire for a place where fear cannot follow, where peace is unbroken, where love is whole. The house of the Lord is not only a temple of stone. It is the dwelling of his presence, a sanctuary where hearts find rest. As the psalmist gazes toward the temple, we too are invited to gaze, not with eyes, but with the soul, to turn inward and upward, to look upon the beauty of the Lord. His beauty is seen in creation, the sweep of the heavens, the whisper of the wind, the strength of the mountains. His beauty is seen in mercy, forgiving sins, lifting burdens, healing wounds. His beauty is seen in love, enduring, patient, unshakable. To behold this beauty is to be changed. The anxious heart grows calm. The restless mind grows still. The weary soul finds rest. For nothing in this world compares to the peace of dwelling near the Lord. And so David's prayer becomes our prayer. One thing I ask, this only do I seek. A simple desire, yet the highest one. Not many things, not countless pursuits, but one clear longing, to be with him. As the night deepens, let this longing settle into your own heart. All the distractions, the worries, the unfulfilled desires of the day fade in importance before this one thing: to dwell with the Lord, to gaze upon his beauty, to seek him in his temple. This is the rest the soul was made for. This is the peace that endures beyond circumstance. This is the joy that cannot be stolen. And as you rest tonight, remember, you dwell even now in the presence of the Lord. The beauty you long for is not far away. It is near, closer than breath, surrounding you with love and light. For in the day of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. David does not pretend that life is free of trouble. He does not deny the reality of enemies, of danger, of sorrow. But he declares where safety truly lies. Not in fortresses, not in walls, not in human strength, but in the Lord Himself. To be hidden in God's dwelling is to be covered by His presence. Like a child drawn into the embrace of a parent. Like a traveler welcomed into a house when the storm rages outside. The troubles may roar, the winds may strike, but inside there is peace. David's words remind the heart that God is not distant in hardship. He is near. He hides His children in the shelter of His presence. He lifts them above the flood. He places them upon a rock that cannot be shaken. The imagery is gentle, yet powerful. To be hidden. To be sheltered. To be lifted. Each word softens the heart, reminding us that God's protection is not merely a shield from without, but a refuge from within. Imagine for a moment the sacred tent. The place where God's glory once dwelled among His people. The flicker of the lampstands, the fragrance of incense, the sound of quiet prayers rising. Now imagine being hidden there, wrapped in His nearness, sheltered under His covering. The world outside still rages, but within there is calm. And then, lifted high upon a rock. A place above the floodwaters, above the reach of enemies, above the chaos. From this vantage, fear loses its grip, for the soul stands steady upon the strength of God. The psalmist invites us to see our lives in the same way. Though the day of trouble comes, and it will, our story does not end in fear. The Lord Himself becomes the dwelling where we hide, the tent where we are kept safe, the rock upon which we stand secure. This is not escape. It is presence. Not denial of trouble, but peace in the midst of it. Not freedom from storms, but shelter through them. As the night deepens, let this truth settle into the heart. That no matter what the day has brought, no matter what tomorrow may hold, the Lord is your shelter. He hides you in His presence. He steadies you upon His rock. He surrounds you with His love. Close your eyes and rest in that assurance. The storm cannot reach you here. The flood cannot overwhelm you here. The enemy cannot find you here. For you are hidden in the dwelling of the Lord, lifted high upon His rock. The psalm unfolds with yet more confidence. Moving from the shelter of God's presence to the lifting of the heart in joy. Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At His sacred tent I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Here David's tone shifts. No longer speaking of hiding, no longer only of refuge, but of victory, of joy, of worship. For when God shelters, He does not merely protect. He lifts. He restores. He exalts the weary above the reach of fear. Enemies may surround, but the Lord raises His servant higher. Not by pride, not by human achievement, but by His own strength. The head once bowed in sorrow is lifted in confidence. The eyes once cast down in fear are lifted toward heaven. The heart once trembling is steadied in joy. And from that place of lifting comes worship. Sacrifice offered not in dread, but in delight. Songs rising not from ritual, but from gratitude. Music filling the tent, not with mourning, but with praise. David knew the weight of trouble, but he also knew the power of worship. That even when enemies surrounded, even when dangers pressed close, lifting his voice to God turned despair into hope, weakness into strength. For praise is not only response, it is refuge. A shield of song, a fortress of thanksgiving, a melody that steadies the soul. As you rest tonight, imagine the sacred tent. The lampstands glowing softly, the fragrance of incense curling upward, the sound of David's voice echoing through its walls. Not the cry of fear, but the song of trust. Not the silence of despair, but the music of hope. So too your heart can rise in quiet worship. Even in the night, even in weariness, even in the midst of trials. For when God lifts your head, when He steadies your feet, when He shelters you in His presence, the natural response is gratitude. You may not have a harp as David did. You may not stand within the tent of Jerusalem. But you have a heart that can sing, even in silence. You have breath that can offer thanks, even in whispers. You have a soul that can turn every sigh into prayer, every pause into praise. And in that worship, your spirit is lifted. Enemies may still linger, troubles may not vanish, yet their power fades when your eyes turn to the Lord in song. The weight of fear grows light when carried upon the melody of praise. David's words invite you to end this day not in heaviness, but in gratitude. To let your head be lifted, your heart rejoicing, your soul at rest. For the Lord has sheltered you, the Lord has lifted you, the Lord has given you reason to sing. So close your eyes with this song upon your heart. Soft, steady, simple. A melody of trust, a hymn of gratitude, a lullaby of faith. The Lord is my light and my salvation. The Lord is the stronghold of my life. My head is lifted high. My heart will sing. And with that song, the night becomes a sanctuary. Peace settles like a covering. Joy steadies the soul. And rest comes gently, carried by the presence of God. The psalm turns now from praise to prayer. From the lifting of the head in confidence to the bending of the knees in humility. Hear my voice when I call, Lord, be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek His face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me, God my Savior. David, who just declared confidence, now reveals the other side of trust. Confidence is not arrogance. It is not the absence of fear. It is the courage to bring fear into prayer, to lay trembling before the Lord, to seek His face even when the soul feels uncertain. His voice softens. Hear me. Be merciful. Answer me. The words carry longing, desperation, dependence. He is not ashamed to cry for mercy, for he knows that mercy is the heart of God. David's prayer is not only a plea, but a response. My heart says of you, seek his face. Something deep within him longs for God, calls him toward his presence, urges him to seek the one he cannot live without. And so he answers that longing. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Here lies the soul's deepest need. Not merely deliverance from enemies, not merely protection from danger, but the presence of God himself. For to see his face is to know his favor. To dwell in his nearness is to rest secure. Yet David feels the fragility of his own heart. He knows his failures, his sins, his weakness. And so he pleads, do not hide your face from me. Do not turn away in anger. Do not reject me. Do not forsake me. The words reveal the tender places of the soul. The fear of abandonment, the longing for assurance, the desperate hope that God will remain near. But even as he prays, David remembers, you have been my helper. The God who was faithful in the past will not forsake in the present. The God who answered before will not turn away now. The God who saved before will save again. This mixture of plea and remembrance is the rhythm of true prayer. We come with fears, but we also come with faith. We cry out for mercy, but we also remember mercy already given. We tremble, but we also trust. As the night deepens, let this prayer settle into your own heart. You too can say, your face, Lord, I will seek. You too can lay your fears before him. You too can remember the moments when he was your helper, your savior, your faithful friend. And as you breathe those prayers, know that God does not turn away. He does not hide his face from the seeking heart. He does not forsake those who call upon his name. So close your eyes with these words resting gently within. A plea, a promise, a prayer. Hear me, Lord. Be merciful. Answer me. Do not forsake me. For you have been my helper. Your face, Lord, I will seek. And in that seeking, peace begins to bloom. The soul rests, not in certainty of tomorrow, but in the nearness of God tonight. The psalm now turns tender. From the cry for mercy to the assurance of God's unfailing nearness. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. These words carry deep weight. For in them is the recognition of life's most painful possibility, that even the closest bonds, even the deepest human loves, can falter. A parent's embrace, a family's care, a friend's loyalty. All these may fail, not always through malice, sometimes through weakness, distance, or frailty. Yet David declares with quiet confidence, the Lord will receive me. The contrast is gentle but profound. Human love, as precious as it is, remains fragile. It can wound, it can disappoint, it can falter. But divine love is steadfast, unwavering, unshakable. The Lord's arms never grow weary. His embrace never closes. His heart never withdraws. To be received by the Lord is to be welcomed without condition. Not tolerated, not barely accepted, but received as beloved. The word carries warmth. The opening of arms, the drawing close of one who delights in you, the smile that says, "You are mine, and you belong here." This assurance speaks into the lonely corners of the heart. For who has not known the ache of rejection, the sting of abandonment, the emptiness of being forgotten? But into that ache comes this promise: the Lord will receive me. Imagine the scene. A child, lost and wandering, rejected and weary, finally coming home. And at the door stands the Father. Arms wide, voice tender, heart full. The child does not need to prove worth, does not need to carry perfection, does not need to hide wounds. The Father receives, simply because love compels him. So too with the Lord. He does not wait for you to be flawless. He does not turn you away in weakness. He does not forsake when others do. He receives. Always, fully, faithfully. David's declaration becomes an anchor in the night. Whatever relationships falter, whatever rejections wound, whatever loneliness lingers, the Lord Himself is enough. He will receive you. He will welcome you. He will hold you near. Let this truth quiet your heart tonight. Even if human love fails, divine love never will. Even if the world turns cold, His arms remain open. Even if others forsake, the Lord draws close. Rest in that assurance. You are received. You are wanted. You are held. And in that nearness, the soul finds peace. The psalm moves forward. From the assurance of God's nearness to the plea for His guidance. For it is not enough to be sheltered by God. Not enough even to be received by Him. The heart longs also to be led by Him. Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations. David's voice trembles between confidence and need. He knows the Lord receives him, but now he seeks something deeper. The path of obedience, the wisdom of direction, the steadiness of being taught. For to be near God is to be guided by Him. And to walk in His ways is to find safety, even when enemies lurk. The request begins simply, "Teach me your way, Lord." It is the cry of a humble heart, acknowledging that human wisdom falters. That left to himself, David would stray. His feet would stumble, his vision would blur, his choices would wander. But with the Lord as teacher, the path is clear. Notice the longing. Not teach me a way, not teach me many ways, but teach me your way. The way of righteousness. The way of truth. The way of peace. A way not bound to shifting sands of human thought, but rooted in the eternal character of God. Then he pleads, "Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors." David knows enemies still linger. Those who lie in wait, those who whisper lies, those who plot in secret. Their snares are subtle, their accusations sharp, their hatred persistent. He asks not only for protection from them, but for a path so straight, so clear, that their schemes will falter. A path where his feet will not slip, where his steps will not wander, where their accusations will find no hold. And then the cry deepens, "Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes." He feels the weight of their malice, the sharpness of their threats, the cruelty of their words. False witnesses rise, voices spouting lies, hearts fueled by hatred. It is not only danger to his body, but anguish to his soul. For slander cuts deep, words wound as fiercely as swords. Yet even here, David does not plot revenge. He does not scheme against his accusers. He turns instead to the Lord, asking for his protection, his leading, his justice. For the God who is light and salvation is also the God who leads his children on level ground. This prayer is as relevant now as it was then. For though we may not face enemies with spears, we face voices that accuse, doubts that whisper lies, fears that seek to pull us from the path. The oppressors of the soul still rise, whether in outward hostility or inward shadow. And the answer remains the same: teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path. This becomes the prayer of every weary heart tonight. Teach me, for I do not know the way myself. Lead me, for I am weak and prone to stumble. Keep me straight upon your path. For the voices of fear, of lies, of temptation surround me. The Lord hears this prayer, and he does not abandon his children to wander. He does not hand them over to the will of the enemy. He does not allow lies to undo his truth. Instead, he teaches with patience, with kindness, with wisdom. He leads with strength, with clarity, with unfailing love. He guards against the oppressor, against the liar, against the destroyer. As the night deepens, let these words steady your heart. You are not left to navigate the darkness alone. The Lord himself walks before you, guiding your steps, keeping you upon his straight path. The false witnesses lose their power. The accusations lose their sting. The oppressors lose their grip. For the Lord is your teacher, your guide, your protector. So close your eyes tonight with this prayer upon your lips. Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path. Protect me from those who rise against me. For you are my light, my salvation, my stronghold. And in that prayer, peace comes. The path grows straight, the heart grows still, the night grows gentle. For the God who teaches also keeps, and the God who leads also loves. The psalm lingers now upon the plea for protection. Having asked to be taught and led, David turns again to the reality of danger that surrounds him. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations. Here his words are raw. He does not dress them in poetry or soften them with metaphor. He names the pain plainly, foes with desires for his downfall, false witnesses with lies on their tongues, malicious voices that twist truth into weapons. David knew what it was to stand accused. He had enemies who envied him, rivals who despised him, adversaries who sought to undo him with words as well as swords. The sting of slander cuts deep, for it not only wounds the body's safety, but pierces the heart's reputation. And so he cries out, not to defend himself, not to retaliate, but to be delivered by the Lord. The phrase, "Do not turn me over," carries a weight of desperation. As though David is saying, "Lord, do not let them have the final word. Do not let their malice consume me. Do not hand me into the grip of those who hate me." He knows that if left to human justice, he could be undone. But he also knows that God is a righteous judge, and his hand is stronger than the desires of men. False witnesses rise. Their words echo in the night like hissing serpents. They accuse without truth. They malign without cause. And yet David does not crumble, for he lifts his eyes higher. Above the voices of slander is the voice of the Lord. Above the judgment of men is the mercy of God. Above the lies of the oppressor is the truth of the Savior. This prayer resonates across time. For who has not faced misunderstanding? Who has not been wounded by false words, unjust criticism, the sharp sting of slander? The pain of being misrepresented, the ache of being wrongly judged, the loneliness of being abandoned when lies seem louder than truth. And yet, this psalm reminds us that such moments do not have the final word. The Lord sees what others cannot. He knows the heart behind the accusation, the truth hidden beneath the noise, the motives buried in darkness. And he himself becomes the shield, the vindicator, the one who holds his children steady when the world seeks to shake them. David does not deny the pain, he names it. Nor does he deny the danger, he brings it into prayer. And in that act, he teaches every weary soul that safety is found not in silence, not in retaliation, but in lifting the cry to God. So let this prayer rest on your lips tonight. If false voices trouble you, if fears accuse you, if doubts rise like witnesses in your mind, whisper with David, "Do not turn me over, Lord. Guard me from the malice of lies. Protect me from the desires of those who seek my harm." And then breathe in the assurance that the Lord hears. He does not forsake his children to the will of the enemy. He does not abandon them to the sting of slander. He does not leave them in the grip of lies. He lifts them, guards them, surrounds them. And in his truth, every false word loses its power. So rest in this promise tonight. The Lord himself is your shield. The Lord himself is your vindication. The Lord himself is your protection when false witnesses rise. The psalm rises now from lament into confidence. David, who has cried for mercy, who has pleaded for guidance, who has begged for protection from false witnesses, lifts his heart once more in trust. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. This is no fragile hope, no wish whispered into uncertainty. It is a declaration, steady and firm. I remain confident. Even after enemies pursue. Even after slander rises. Even after fears creep close. Still David declares confidence. Notice his assurance. Not in the afterlife only, not in distant eternity alone, but in the land of the living. Here and now, in this life, in this world, he expects to see the goodness of God. Not because life will be without trouble, but because God's goodness is greater than trouble. Not because enemies vanish, but because the Lord's hand delivers even in their presence. This is the courage of faith, to believe that in the very land where sorrow dwells, goodness also abides. That in the very days where fear whispers, mercy also speaks. That in the midst of the darkest night, light will still shine. David's words stretch across centuries, offering the same confidence to every weary heart tonight. You too will see the goodness of the Lord. Not only when all is made new, not only when sorrow is gone forever, but even here, in the land of the living. In answered prayers, in quiet mercies, in unexpected kindness, in strength renewed at dawn. Think of the goodness already seen, the breath that fills your lungs tonight, the shelter over your head, the love that has touched your life in ways small and great, the forgiveness that has lifted your guilt, the peace that has met you in prayer, the presence of God that has carried you through storms. All these are glimpses of His goodness in the land of the living. And if you have seen it before, you will see it again. For His mercies are new every morning. His faithfulness endures through all generations. His love never fails. David does not say, "I might see." He says, "I will see." Such is the boldness of trust. A confidence not built upon his own strength, but upon the unchanging character of God. So let this assurance quiet your fears tonight. The enemies may linger, the shadows may whisper, the future may feel uncertain. But this truth stands firm: you will see the goodness of the Lord. Not because of who you are, but because of who He is. Not because the path is easy, but because His mercy walks with you upon it. Close your eyes with this confidence upon your heart. That tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, you will see glimpses of His goodness. That even in trials, His hand will guide. That even in sorrow, His comfort will hold. That even in darkness, His light will shine. For the Lord's goodness is not distant. It is near. And His children will see it, here in the land of the living. The psalm now draws toward its gentle conclusion. From cries for mercy and pleas for protection to a final word of assurance and exhortation. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. The words come like a soft refrain. Not a command shouted with force, but a whisper of encouragement. A lullaby of faith for the weary soul. David does not promise that answers will come swiftly. He does not say that enemies will vanish tomorrow, or that sorrow will flee in an instant. He speaks instead of waiting. Waiting is the language of trust. It is the posture of a heart that leans not on its own strength, but on the steadfastness of God. It is the stillness of one who knows that though storms rage, though time feels long, though prayers seem unanswered, God is working. Be strong and take heart. The strength David calls for is not the might of warriors or the resolve of kings. It is the quiet strength of faith. The kind of strength that keeps breathing when fear presses close. The kind of strength that keeps praying when the night is long. The kind of strength that keeps trusting when the answer has not yet come. And then again, wait for the Lord. Repetition softens the command into comfort. Wait, because He is faithful. Wait, because His timing is perfect. Wait, because His goodness cannot be rushed, but it will not fail. This final verse is not only instruction, it is a gift. A gift to those who are weary of waiting, a gift to those who fear their prayers are unheard, a gift to those who wonder if God sees. It reminds every soul that the Lord does not delay out of neglect, but out of wisdom. That His silence is not absence, but preparation. That His timing, though often mysterious, is always filled with love. As you rest tonight, let this refrain wash over your heart. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. Wait for the Lord. Let it settle like a rhythm of peace, like the gentle rocking of waves, like the slow breathing of rest. Do not hurry the night, for even in waiting there is presence. Do not fear the silence, for even in silence He is near. Do not despair the delay, for even in delay His goodness is unfolding. The psalm closes here, but the story of faith continues. David's words become your words. His prayer becomes your prayer. His confidence becomes your confidence. The same God who was his light, his salvation, his stronghold, is yours tonight. So close your eyes with courage, not because you hold tomorrow, but because the Lord does. Be strong in spirit, not because enemies are gone, but because God is greater. Take heart, not because the waiting is easy, but because the one you wait for is faithful. And let the final whisper carry you into rest. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. And wait for the Lord. The psalm's closing exhortation lingers softly. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. And now, like the echo of a song, the words invite the heart into deeper meditation, into the mystery and gift of waiting. Waiting is not weakness, though the world may say so. Waiting is not passivity, though impatience may mock it. Waiting is trust made visible. Trust stretched out across the silence, trust that does not waver when the answer is unseen. To wait for the Lord is to rest in His timing. It is to say, I believe you are good, even when the days feel long. It is to whisper, "I trust your wisdom, even when I do not understand." It is to breathe, "I know you are near, even when I cannot yet see the way." David's life was marked by waiting. He waited years between the promise of kingship and the crown itself. He waited through caves and wilderness, hunted by Saul, clinging to God's deliverance. He waited for rescue from enemies, for vindication from slander, for peace after battles. And in each season, he learned that waiting was not empty, it was filled with God's presence. So too the soul tonight is invited into this gentle posture. Not to grasp for control, not to chase after quick answers, not to yield to despair when delays linger, but to rest, to wait, to trust. The waiting of faith is not silent idleness. It is filled with prayer, with worship, with quiet hope. It is the steady heartbeat of confidence, that though the night is long, dawn will surely come. That though the tree seems bare, blossoms will appear in season. That though the soil looks still, life stirs unseen beneath. Be strong and take heart. The strength called for here is not the clenched fist, not the stiff resolve of pride. It is the strength of surrender, the courage of trust, the resilience of a heart anchored in God's love. To be strong in waiting is to let go of what you cannot control and hold fast to the one who can. To take heart is to breathe hope again, even when fear has tried to suffocate it. Waiting becomes a holy space, a place where the restless heart learns stillness, where the anxious mind learns peace, where the weary soul learns that God's timing is not late, but perfect. Consider the night itself. The darkness stretches long, the hours seem endless. Yet morning always comes. No power of man hastens the dawn, no strength of will makes the sun rise sooner. But in waiting, the world rests under the quiet promise of light. So too with the promises of God. They may seem delayed, yet they come at the appointed hour. Never rushed, never late, always faithful. Let this truth cradle your heart tonight. You are not abandoned in the waiting. You are not forgotten in the delay. You are not forsaken in the silence. The Lord is here, even now. His Spirit whispering comfort, His presence wrapping you in peace. His mercy unfolding unseen. So close your eyes with courage. Let the refrain of the psalm echo softly in your soul. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. Wait for the Lord. Breathe slowly. Release the weight of impatience. Rest in the strength of His love. And know that the waiting itself is part of His gift. A sacred space where trust deepens, where faith grows, where peace is born. The psalm has called us to wait, to trust in God's timing, to be strong and take heart. And now the heart is drawn again to the beauty of God's presence. For waiting is not empty if it is filled with Him. It is not barren if His nearness surrounds us. David had already whispered his deepest longing. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. This desire weaves through every verse, from cries for mercy to songs of confidence, from pleas for guidance to declarations of trust. All of it springs from the same longing to be near God. The beauty of the Lord is unlike the beauty of this world. It does not fade like flowers. It does not rust like metal. It does not crumble like stone. It is the beauty of holiness, of purity untouched by sin, of love unshaken by failure, of mercy that never runs dry. It is the beauty of light itself, shining steady in darkness. When David speaks of gazing upon the Lord's beauty, he is not imagining a quick glance, but a steady gaze, a heart fixed in worship, a soul resting in awe. To dwell in his house, to seek his temple, is to live in a continual awareness of his presence. Not only in sacred spaces of stone and altar, but in the quiet of the wilderness, in the press of battle, in the solitude of night. Wherever the Lord is, there his beauty shines. This beauty nourishes the soul. It calms the restless mind, softening fear's edges. It steadies the trembling heart, anchoring it in peace. It fills the weary spirit with strength that does not come from self, but from beholding the one who is altogether lovely. The heart grows what it gazes upon. To look at shadows is to grow in fear. To look at failures is to grow in despair. But to gaze upon the Lord is to grow in peace, in trust, in joy. His beauty transforms, shaping the soul into quiet strength. And here lies the gift of worship. Not ritual alone, but communion. Not duty alone, but delight. To lift one's eyes from the noise of life and fix them upon the splendor of the Lord. Tonight, as the world grows still, imagine entering his dwelling. The flicker of sacred lamps, the fragrance of incense, the hush of holy silence. There, the heart gazes not upon gold or jewels, not upon power or pride, but upon the beauty of the Lord. His mercy like gentle light. His love like steady flame. His presence like cool water upon a weary soul. And as you rest in that beauty, fear fades. The enemies that once loomed large shrink in the distance. The anxieties that once shouted loud soften to whispers. The heart, once restless, now grows still. For to behold his beauty is to remember who he is. And in remembering who he is, the soul remembers who it is. Beloved, sheltered, received, guided, protected, renewed. So let David's longing become your longing tonight. One thing I ask, this only do I seek, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord. Let it echo in your soul like a soft prayer, filling every corner with calm. For in gazing upon him, peace comes gently, joy rises quietly, and rest flows like a river. The psalm breathes with intimacy now. From gazing upon the beauty of the Lord, the meditation turns inward, to the voice of the soul itself. The quiet, trembling, sometimes faltering cry that rises from deep within. David has prayed, "Hear my voice when I call, Lord, be merciful to me and answer me." It is the voice of longing. A heart yearning for nearness, afraid of distance, desperate for God's presence. The voice of the soul is not always polished. It does not speak in grand words, nor does it always sound steady. Sometimes it quivers with fear. Sometimes it cracks under sorrow. Sometimes it whispers faintly in exhaustion. But God does not despise such prayers. He delights in them. For they are true. They are real. They are the honest outpouring of a heart that knows it needs Him. David's own soul trembled between boldness and fragility. One moment declaring, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" The next whispering, "Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn me away in anger." Here is the paradox of faith. Bold in trust, yet honest in weakness. Confident in God's character, yet vulnerable in human frailty. The voice of the soul carries both cries and confessions. It longs for God's guidance. "Teach me your way, Lord, lead me in a straight path." It pleads for protection. "Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes." It declares hope. "I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." It exhorts itself to endurance. "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart." The psalm becomes a mirror of the soul's rhythm. Upward in confidence. Downward in plea. Outward in praise. Inward in longing. Like waves upon the shore, the heart rises and falls, yet always reaches toward God. And so tonight, the listener is invited to let their own soul speak. Not with rehearsed prayers, but with truth. Not with forced eloquence, but with honesty. To pour out fears as David did. To confess weakness, to whisper longing, to admit the ache of waiting. And then, to let trust rise, even in trembling. For the Lord hears not only the strong voice of praise, but the fragile whisper of need. He hears not only songs of triumph, but sighs of sorrow. He hears not only shouts of confidence, but the quiet confessions of fear. And He receives them all. The voice of the soul is precious to Him. Even when faltering, it rises like incense. Even when broken, it is gathered as offering. Even when wordless, it is understood. So as the night deepens, allow your soul's voice to rise. Let its longing speak, "Your face, Lord, I will seek." Let its fear whisper, "Do not hide from me. Do not forsake me." Let its hope declare, "I will see the goodness of the Lord." Let its endurance sigh, "I will wait. I will be strong. I will take heart." Here lies the beauty of Psalm 27. That it gives permission for the soul to speak in every tone: praise, plea, lament, confidence. And in every tone, God listens, God answers, God draws near. So let the voice of your soul find rest tonight. Not silenced, but heard. Not rejected, but received. not hidden, but sheltered in the presence of the Lord, who is light, salvation, and stronghold forever. The psalm draws us now into a meditation on strength. Not the brittle strength of human pride, but the quiet, steady strength that comes only from the Lord. David had written, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" And again at the close, "Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord." These words echo together. Strength found not in self, but in Him. Courage drawn not from circumstances, but from His presence. Human strength falters. It wearies, it breaks, it proves insufficient when the burden grows heavy. Even the strongest hearts tremble. Even the bravest warriors falter. Even the most steadfast resolve bends under the weight of fear. But divine strength endures. It does not fade, it does not falter, it does not fail. David knew this truth well. When he faced Goliath, his courage was not in the sling, but in the God who guided the stone. When he fled from Saul, his safety was not in caves, but in the Lord who shielded him. When he reigned as king, his victories were not in armies, but in the Lord who fought for him. In every season, his strength was not his own. It was given. This is why his words carry weight for the weary soul tonight. The strength of the Lord is not reserved for the mighty, it is offered to the weak. Not kept for the flawless, it is poured out on the broken. Not held back for the confident, it is given to the trembling. To be strong in the Lord is not to be without fear. It is to bring fear into His presence and find it calmed. It is not to be without weakness. It is to bring weakness to His feet and find it lifted. It is not to stand on your own. It is to lean fully upon the everlasting arms. David's call, "Be strong and take heart," is not a demand to muster courage from within. It is an invitation to draw strength from above. To take heart is not to harden oneself, but to soften into trust. To be strong is not to deny fear, but to rest in the one who is greater than fear. Imagine strength flowing not like sudden fire, but like steady water, filling the cracks of your weariness, seeping into the dry places of your soul, restoring what has been depleted. It does not overwhelm, it sustains. It does not crush, it upholds. It does not vanish, it endures. This is the strength of the Lord. Gentle enough to carry, mighty enough to shield, tender enough to comfort, enduring enough to last through every trial. As the night deepens, let this truth cover you. That you do not need to hold yourself together by your own power. You do not need to fight every battle with your own might. You do not need to rise tomorrow in your own strength. For the Lord Himself is your stronghold, and His strength is made perfect in weakness. Close your eyes and rest in this assurance. When your heart trembles, He steadies it. When your body wearies, He sustains it. When your spirit falters, He renews it. Let David's words echo gently as you breathe. The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. And with each breath, feel His strength surround you. Quiet, steady, unshakable, carrying you into peace. The psalm draws the heart now toward hope. From strength in the Lord to the vision of His goodness. The promise that even in the midst of trouble, His beauty and mercy can still be seen. David declares with assurance, "I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Not only in the eternal future, though that hope is certain, but here, in this present life, in the land of the living. This is a daring declaration. For David knew sorrow. He knew betrayal, he knew loss, he knew danger. Yet even in the shadow of such troubles, he looked for the goodness of God. The vision of goodness is more than optimism, more than wishful thinking, more than telling oneself that things will improve. It is rooted in the very character of God. The Lord is good, and therefore His goodness cannot be hidden forever. Though clouds may cover, though shadows may linger, though sorrow may press hard, the sun of His mercy still rises. To see His goodness is to recognize His hand in small mercies. The dawn that breaks after a restless night. The friend who offers a kind word. The strength that comes just when it is needed most. It is to notice His fingerprints on the ordinary. His presence in the quiet. His care in the details. David's words invite every soul to lift its eyes. Not to deny the pain of the present, but to look beyond it. Not to minimize the weight of sorrow, but to remember that goodness still flows through it. Not to despair at the darkness, but to watch for the light that will surely pierce it. This vision becomes an anchor. For when the soul expects to see God's goodness, despair loses its grip. When the heart looks forward in faith, fear cannot choke it. When the eyes are fixed on the promise of His mercy, hopelessness begins to fade. Consider how many times God's goodness has already been seen in your life. The times He rescued when all seemed lost. The prayers answered in unexpected ways. The peace given when chaos pressed hard. Each moment of mercy is a foretaste of what is to come. Each glimpse of grace is a promise renewed. So tonight, let your heart hold to this vision. Even if the day has been heavy, even if sorrow lingers, even if tomorrow feels uncertain, you will see the goodness of the Lord. Not because circumstances are perfect, but because His love is unchanging. Not because the world is kind, but because He is faithful. The psalmist's words become your own. I remain confident. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Repeat them softly, let them echo through your soul. A declaration in the dark. A promise in the night. A vision of light waiting to break through. And as you rest, let that vision carry you into peace. For the goodness of the Lord is not far off, it is near. It surrounds you, it pursues you, it waits to be revealed. And in that goodness, the heart finds rest. The psalm moves us now from the vision of goodness into the slow, steady rhythm of patience. For to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living requires waiting, trusting, yielding to His timing, not our own. David closes with the gentle refrain, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." This repetition is not accidental. It is a melody for the weary soul. A reminder that faith is not only about believing, but also about enduring. Patience of faith is unlike the patience the world teaches. It is not the cold endurance of gritting one's teeth. It is not the passive resignation of despair. It is the warm strength of a heart that leans into God's love. It is the steady hope of one who knows that though the promise tarries, it will surely come. David himself lived this patience. Anointed as king in his youth, yet waiting long years before the crown rested on his head. Hunted by Saul, hiding in caves, wandering through wilderness, yet clinging to the Lord's promise. His waiting was not wasted. It deepened his trust, refined his heart, prepared him for what was to come. So too is the waiting of every soul who leans upon the Lord. The delays of life are not denials. The silence of God is not abandonment. The slowness of answers is not neglect. They are the sacred ground where faith grows, where roots deepen, where trust matures. The patience of faith teaches us to rest in what we cannot yet see, to believe that God's hand is at work beneath the surface, even when the soil looks still, to know that His timing, though mysterious, is always perfect. Not early, not late, but at the hour when love and wisdom join together in fullness. This waiting is not empty, it is full of presence. God walks with His children even in the delay. His Spirit comforts even in the silence. His love sustains even when the promise seems far. The waiting itself becomes a testimony that the Lord is enough even before the answer arrives. And so the Psalm's final call becomes your invitation tonight. Be strong, not in your own might, but in His. Take heart, not because the waiting is short, but because His mercy is long. Wait, not in fear, but in trust. Not in despair, but in quiet expectation. As you lie in stillness, imagine your waiting as seed buried deep in the earth. The soil is dark, the growth unseen, the time uncertain. Yet within, life stirs. So it is with God's promises. They may lie hidden, they may seem delayed, but they are alive with His purpose. And in the right season, they will break forth in beauty. So let your soul breathe slowly tonight. Release the restless hurry. Rest in the patience of faith. Whisper David's refrain as a lullaby over your own heart. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. Wait for the Lord. And as those words settle deep, peace flows gently. Not because every answer has come, but because you know the one who holds them all. And that knowing is enough. The Psalm's melody carries us now into assurance. From waiting in trust to resting in gratitude. from trembling pleas to steady confidence. The soul finds its song again. For when David says, "I remain confident of this, I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living," he is not only declaring hope, he is singing assurance. It is the kind of assurance that grows quietly, like dawn breaking after a long night. The kind of assurance that does not erase sorrow, but steadies the soul through it. The kind of assurance that takes waiting and turns it into worship. Gratitude rises here, not because every prayer has been answered, but because God Himself is near. Not because every fear has been silenced, but because His voice is louder than fear. Not because the path is easy, but because His presence makes even the hardest road holy. The song of assurance is gentle. It is not shouted from rooftops, but whispered in prayer. It does not boast in self, but rejoices in God. It is sung by weary souls who still trust, by trembling hearts that still hope, by tired bodies that still rest in His love. David had known many nights of fear. Yet he also knew mornings of mercy. He had seen armies rise, but he had also seen the Lord scatter them. He had felt abandoned, but he had also felt God receive him when others turned away. And so his assurance was not unfounded, it was born of experience. Each glimpse of God's faithfulness in the past became a note in his song of gratitude. Each answered prayer a chord of praise. Each deliverance a refrain of joy. Until his soul could not help but sing, even in waiting, even in uncertainty. So too your own heart can sing tonight. Not because every burden is lifted, but because the one who carries burdens walks beside you. Not because every question is answered, but because the one who holds wisdom is near. Not because tomorrow is clear, but because His light already shines in the darkness. The song of assurance is gratitude wrapped in trust. It is saying, "Thank you, Lord, for what you have done. And thank you, Lord, for what you will do." It is remembering past mercies and trusting future ones. It is holding today's troubles in one hand, and tomorrow's promises in the other, and praising God in the middle. As night settles, let your soul hum this quiet melody. It does not need words, for assurance is deeper than speech. It does not need instruments, for the heart itself becomes the harp. It does not need audience, for the Lord Himself listens with delight. Rest in this assurance tonight, that you will see His goodness, that you are sheltered in His presence, that you are received by His love. Let gratitude steady your breathing, let trust soften your spirit, let assurance rock you gently into peace. For the Lord is light, the Lord is salvation, the Lord is stronghold forever. And His goodness is not a distant dream, it is the reality that surrounds you even now. The psalm carries us now into a wide horizon. From David's personal cries and confidences, the meditation expands outward to the universality of God's mercy, to the truth that what David declared for himself is true for all who trust in the Lord. For the Lord's goodness is not confined to one man's life, nor to one generation's song. It is the melody that runs through history, the thread that binds all who call on His name. From Abraham beneath the stars, to Moses before the burning bush, to Hannah weeping in the temple, to David lifting his harp in hidden caves. Each voice joins in the same assurance: the Lord is faithful, the Lord is good, the Lord is near to those who seek him. This universality is what makes Psalm 27 more than David's prayer. It is the prayer of every believer. When fear presses close, the words, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" become our shield. When longing rises, the words, "One thing I ask, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord," become our heart's cry. When weariness weighs heavy, the words, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart," become our gentle strength. The mercy of God does not wane. Generations rise and fall, nations grow and crumble, time marches on. But his compassion remains steady. The same hand that lifted David lifts us. The same voice that comforted prophets whispers peace to us. The same love that received the forsaken still gathers us close. Think of how the psalm has been sung across ages, chanted by monks in candlelit cloisters, whispered by mothers over their children's beds, recited by soldiers in the dark of war, prayed by the lonely in hospital rooms, sung by worshippers in great cathedrals and simple homes alike. Each voice a testimony that God's goodness endures. Each prayer a thread woven into the vast tapestry of faith. The universality of his mercy means this: no one is beyond his light. No fear too small, no enemy too strong, no sorrow too deep, no night too long. The same God who was David's stronghold is yours tonight. The same God who answered then, answers still. The same God who was merciful yesterday will be merciful tomorrow. This truth steadies the soul in its waiting. For if his love has endured for generations past, it will endure for generations to come. If his compassion stretched to David, it stretches to you. If his presence covered prophets, kings, and the forgotten alike, it covers you now. So let your heart rest in this assurance. You are part of a great company who have sung these words, prayed these lines, clung to these promises. You are not alone in your longing, not alone in your waiting, not alone in your trust. You are joined with countless souls across time who have found the same mercy. And just as they saw his goodness in the land of the living, so too will you. For his mercy is not bound by time, not restrained by weakness, not limited by place. It is universal, eternal, unshakable. Let this widen your heart as night falls. Lift your eyes from your own struggle to the vast chorus of faith, and know that you are held within the same everlasting arms. The psalm comes to its gentle close. Every cry, every plea, every declaration of trust settles now into quiet rest. The heart that trembled with fear, the voice that cried for mercy, the soul that longed for God's beauty, all find peace in his presence. Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. This final refrain is not hurried. It is unhurried and tender. like a father's hand upon a child's shoulder, like a mother's whisper in the dark. It is the Psalm's lullaby, a call to patience, a promise of hope, a reminder of love. As the night deepens, imagine yourself resting within these words. The Lord is your light, His glow softens the shadows, driving away the fear of the unknown. The Lord is your salvation, His hand holds you steady, delivering you from all that seeks to harm. The Lord is your stronghold, His presence surrounds you like walls that cannot fall, like arms that never let go. Every fear that rose at the day's troubles is answered here. Whom shall I fear? No one. Of whom shall I be afraid? Nothing. For the Lord Himself is near. Every longing of the heart finds its home here. The desire to dwell in His house, to gaze upon His beauty, to be sheltered in His tent, to be lifted upon His rock. All of this is fulfilled in His nearness, in the gentle reality that you are already received, already loved, already held. Every plea is heard here. Teach me, lead me, protect me, do not forsake me. And heaven has answered, with wisdom, with guidance, with mercy, with steadfast love. Even if the answer is not yet seen, it is already secured in His faithfulness. And so the psalm closes not with anxiety, but with assurance. Not with despair, but with hope. Not with the noise of fear, but with the stillness of peace. The soul rests now in waiting. Not restless waiting, but holy waiting. The waiting that trusts God's timing, that believes His goodness, that leans into His mercy. The waiting that sings softly in the night, confident that dawn will come. Let your spirit be wrapped in this truth tonight. You are sheltered in His light. You are saved by His hand. You are strong in His presence. Let David's refrain be your final prayer as sleep draws near. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. And wait for the Lord. And in that waiting, peace flows. The heart is steady, the mind is calm, the body is at rest. For the Lord Himself is near, and His mercy endures forever.